And there we are. Now we're recording. Hopefully, Lord
Okay.
willing, no tech issues this time.
No tech issues this time. Yeah, we're hearing everything loud and clear. We're doing great.
That's great. So how are you?
I'm good, man. How is everything in your world? What's new?
I really can't complain about anything. I'm getting married in February. I have a job. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Appreciate that. Yeah, so everything really, I have nothing to complain about. That's the best part.
Thank God. Thank God.
Amen.
A lot of people in the world have a lot to complain about, but you know
Well,
what?
I mean, I could, but who's listening?
Well, I mean, a whole bunch. I mean, I found you, and it's like, I mean, evidently, a lot of people like what you have to say, and I'm trying to, for the sake of the church, and of course, the sake of my project, we're trying to get to that level, so to speak. But,
Yeah,
yeah,
I always feel I have a special place in my heart, although I kind of, I don't want to say I advocate against it, but I don't use my platform sort of for that purpose, in part because I don't want to associate my political takes with that of the official position of the church on anything. But I
yeah.
mean, my audience knows that I'm Orthodox. I have my in my background, at least when I have my actual camera on, I have a small print sketch of an icon that a late priest that started our church had made, and I've taken up that art as well, that craft. So I mean, it's I just try not to bleed into the two, because you're either a religious evangelist or an apologist, or however you wish to describe that, and you're a good witness towards the faith, or you're doing whatever it is you're doing on the internet, whether that's commentary or making something or however. And so I think that there needs to be, it's like my friend always says, you can have a gun channel or a politics channel. You can't do both. And I think it's the same thing with the faith. Is like, you can be an Orthodox channel or you can be a politics channel. Most of the time when you blend the two, it kind of gets really ugly really quickly. And I think that that's sort of a fine line I try to steer clear from.
Yeah, well, I mean, you see a lot of people do the trying to blend like the political and then like the other apparatus of the stuff you're doing. Like, there's that watch company that just you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it's like they looked like they made cool stuff, and then they started taking like these hardline positions, and I guess at that level it really doesn't matter if you're on one end of it or another, but you're starting to polarize an audience that you're trying to offer something completely separate that has nothing to do with what you're saying, and then by the time it's over, you're losing not only half of your market share, but half of the respect that you would usually gain from people that you're trying to cater to, which is like, it's just bad business. You know what I mean? At the end of the day.
Yeah, you can be an ideologically, I mean, open company about what it is you believe in, or you can chase trends and then purposefully alienate your existing customer and viewer base. Because had that said watch company not decided to crash out over a particular issue, which is probably the number one hot button issue that people like to talk about on social media these days, he probably would have done just fine and would have secured the bag, getting hundreds of thousands of dollars from whoever he might have hated. But nevertheless, I think that one thing about Twitter especially, and I'm sure that you've noticed this too, is that it is the ultimate test of your ego and a great way to have your pride on full display, because it's so easy for someone to misread you or to quote tweet you or whatever and just start crap for no real apparent reason other than like, it's the internet and it's a great time waster. From there, it's really easy for you to, as the kids like to say, crash out or coal out, and just go from there, right? And it's just like, well, I haven't done that so far, so I really don't want to get started now. And I think that's the real problem with a business, is that it's so easy for one social media intern or something to completely ruin it for everybody else. Like, we're so past the age of like the Denny's Tumblr account or the nihilist steak
Denny's
from like 10
Tumblr
years
account's
ago.
funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. It's like being a year and a half, 2 years into this project, I've noticed two things. It's like, one, a good way to run branding, a good way to run like how you want to present what you're doing to people, is making sure you're so busy all the time that you don't have time to mess up. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like, everybody, there's a lot of people on, and I'm, this isn't me trying to disparage them, but people who have a lot of grand ideas, big opinions about things happening in the world, and they're constantly tweeting them out. It's tangentially like a similar thing to girls that are posting on Instagram all the time. You know what I mean? It's like, this sort of thing takes up a huge swath of your day. And kind of on the back end of this company, I mean, I have I have like 13 people working for the nonprofit now, and it's like we still don't have time to like just sit back and chill. You know what I mean? It's like it's always that. And the other element of it is like it might be a secret, it may not be a secret what, you know, um my very strict theological positions are, even with orthodoxy, you know, politics. Like I think a lot of people kind of understand where I'm at, but regardless of that, whether it be through Christ just helping me out or me not overdoing it, I've been able to pretty much keep it peachy with pretty much all sides of things. I have very liberal clergy on my podcast, you know, the very hyper conservative ones, monastically oriented, academically oriented, and I get along fine with all of them, because at the end of the day, the mission is just, you know, an anthropological project showing people that are in orthodoxy what it looks like here in the 21st century globally. And then the other side of it is just introducing to people, you know, what this all is. This is who we are as the Orthodox Church. And it's gone well so far. It's gone very well so far. And just like the Orthodox Church, the only roadblock we hit is exposure. So, you know, that's kind of the way the ball rolls as of right now.
Yeah, once Camera One by Josh Joplin starts playing, everyone kind of realizes that, yeah, you're playing yourself, and this is the character or the role that you have to live in. And I mean, for me, I've been blessed doing these things politically because I'm friends with people from all sorts of things. I have relatively friendly conversations with people I also vehemently disagree with. It's very strange. There's a group of guys that I guess you could call them, I guess, like little O Orthodox Marxists in the way they look at the world.
Yeah.
But I'm like, they probably have some of the most, I have some of the most entertaining conversations with them. And I'm like, at the end of the day, you and I are going to disagree on everything. But this is the last place on the internet that I still have a civil conversation with someone, which is why I guess I have the sentimental value to them.
Yeah.
But for me, I mean, it's like I'm also, most of my life in terms of my social life or what I do is all off the internet anyways, which is so strange because I still live with this very old-fashioned mindset where it's like, yeah, Twitter is there, but I'm not living in it 24/7. I'm not living as this amphibious character that I've decided to inhabit for the last several years. Whereas, and then it gets really strange because, of course, I've had people, I mean, there are people in my parish who know that I am. I don't typically advertise it or anything like that. I really don't. I'm like, that guy doesn't exist when I'm here. I would prefer to keep it that way. But like, I had a couple one time walk over, and the wife was just like, hey, I don't mean to make this awkward, but like, I like the Digital Archipelago. We like to listen to it. And I'm like, thanks. And like, my coffee is ruined. Because I try very hard not to make that why I'm there. And I try very hard not to like speak up on really any of the major issues or whatever, just because it's like, I'm here to listen, I'm here to learn, I'm here to humble myself. And at the end of the day, that's what I would like to focus on more than anything. And I think that that's the best way to sort of keep about it. And I've had other people I've interviewed with or talked to where they're just like, wow, well, Prude, it seems like your life is pretty more in real life than it is online. And I'm like, yeah. And even with the people I meet on the internet, I eventually become friends with them in real life anyway. So it all kind of works out. Like, there are two very good Twitter mutuals of mine that are invited to my wedding. Like, that's just sort of the way it goes. And that's sort of how life is. And it's a small vestige of like this I mean, the internet's always been politically polarized, but like pre 2016 internet, where like, I can meet people, I can make friends this way. I mean, you still can. It's just, with an extra layer of caution. And like you had mentioned, like as soon as there's exposure to ideas or what people think they are, everyone wants to run with the straw man like guy that they have in their head. Like, I'm going to develop my caricature of this person. This is the Wojak that I now have set in my mind for said individual. And now it's like, okay, cool. Now I don't have to worry about him because I have a label or a illusion of who I think he is.
Yeah. And you know what? It's like I don't like saying like X thing is an American problem, right? Because it's like, for all intents and purposes, like, you know, I'm moving back to Greece. Not in a spiteful way. I generally don't associate myself with like because I wasn't really raised American. Both sides of my family are Greek. Everybody I grew up around was Greek. And the most exposure I've ever had to American culture was seeing a lot of the converts from Orthodoxy from America coming into the faith, and, you know, them showing me like, okay, this is what America looks like at its best, at its core. Speaking of, I went down to I have two spiritual fathers. One of them lives in Greece. The other one lives in Alabama, and the one in Alabama, you know, it's no secret. Me and him work together on stuff, digital media, all the time, and you know, I grew up only around Greek churches, only around Greek monasteries. I was going to Elder Ephraim's monastery in Arizona every year, like from the time I was a little kid, and you know, up until the point that Ephraim passed away. I was there all the time. I usually go to church on Sunday, either half at the local parish or half at the first monastery he set up in Saxonburg, PA. But so with the YouTube channel, what we started doing was this thing called temple tours, where basically we go across the United States and we record documentaries for churches. Because when we're talking about like the big cathedrals, like, you know, St. Nicholas is in New York, it's like I don't even know, like the bigger parishes in like Pittsburgh, Cleveland, like, you know, plenty of people know about what's going on there. But, you know, these smaller chapels hanging out kind of in the corners of sadly nowhere, and you know, these other parishes that are kind of like localized, nobody knows about them. I feel like exposing the beauty of their localized traditions kind of helps people get a broader understanding of what orthodoxy looks like everywhere, not just kind of like on the marketed surface of it. So first one I did was down in West Virginia, at a parish that the priest was a dear friend of my family's growing up when my family was in Youngstown. And then this other parish, Rocor Chapel, you know, in Alabama, very unassuming place. Rocor, you know, I'm a Greek. I don't know anything about these people. I've never stepped foot in, you know, really any OCA parishes, Russian, some Serbian, because, you know, I'm friends with Serbs. But you know, I go down there, dude, I can't tell you how nice these people are. It felt like I was back in Greece. It's like when they cook for like the after parish meal, it's like they go all out and everybody wants to know who you are, where you're from. Like they're welcoming, they're smiling. They're happy with like, you know, the situation that they're in with each other. It's like, and that's the core of the Orthodox parish community. It's like, wow, if everywhere looked like this, things would be so much better. People are just happy and they're like, you know, kind of working with the game plan. It was great. It really was. But yeah, no, but anyway, it's like, you know, that's kind of the reason why I don't like prescribing things as American issues. But it's like something particular about the United States. It's like, you know, if an issue is disagreed upon, it's automatically like an enemy complex. It's like this person is now versus this person because there's some kind of divide there. Dude, I'll tell you what, my electrician down in Greece, he is a full blown out communist, which communism there, especially around my part of Greece, there is an uptick in it from, I guess, whatever position. But you know, everybody kind of just exists how they do, and what's more important than where we are politically is our Hellenism and our Orthodoxy. You know what I mean? And it seems like, I would say probably since around 2012, this great divide has happened. Some people might call me naive for that because you know, I'm only 25. I don't really know what was going on, you know, when I was a little kid, like as far as the social fabric was concerned. But you could tell me if I'm wrong or not. It seems like people have gotten more hostile with each other on like a opinion differentiation level.
Well, that would be stating the obvious. I don't mean that to belittle you or anything like that, but I mean but I
just don't know.
No, sure. I mean, like in America, especially the social media environment that we had lived in, I mean, had always given way to sort of this vast decentralization of where you can get your ideas, where you can get your opinions, where you can get even your facts, so to speak, right? And so we went from an age in America where you had a relatively straightforward consensus establishment wherein, okay, there's Fox News, there's CNN, MSNBC, and I mean, that's with the explosion of cable and Ted Turner in the 1990s. And even prior to that, you had the three main big public broadcasting channels. And of course, if you select papers and if you were really into like underground or extreme politics left or right, like there were people with newsletters and mailers that you had to subscribe to that maybe you and like 2 or 3 other dozen people in the country subscribed to. Substack before it was really cool. And then on top of all that, now in the internet age and social media, now there's a million different blogs or websites that you could go on to sort of get these opinions, views, and so on. And so we become more hostile because, one, we're sort of algorithmically programmed to post, and Lord willing, I'll start my essay series on that exact subject matter shortly. But the thing is that we're encouraged to get the feedback loop of likes, retweets, posts, etc., whether it's Facebook, Instagram, or whatever. And that really does encourage for the average person a desire to, in the same way with the evils of pornography, right, to go more extreme and to go for the fences because this will get more attention on yourself. So it feeds into your pride. And then on top of that, you're being fed things that conform already to your exact political opinions or things that you think that you would already agree with. And they know this. And it's gone that way since Barack Obama and his election. Like, we went from going to campaign websites for presidential candidates to now everyone can engage on Facebook and social media and things like that. And so, I mean, to condense, I don't know, the last like 30 years of, political media and how divided we've become, it's gotten to a point where the idea of a civil discussion with someone you might disagree with functionally doesn't exist for most people. And they've effectively divided themselves into camps wherein, if I don't know a person's politics, I don't want to ask because I don't want to ruin my relationship with them.
Yeah, isn't that awful? That it's that's where we're at.
It's terrible. I would agree wholeheartedly. It's evil. It's awful. It's depressing. But also, I mean, America is so divided on things from just like the narrative of the country to our demographics to open blood libel more or less being put out against like the majority stock of the country, to where it's just like, well, really, it's come to a point where everyone's politics is now an extension of identity, which it always has been, and it's also an extension of just the way I function and exist as a human being day to day. Like, I don't talk about what I review or read in real life unless I'm in like a close cadre of friends that I kind of already agree with politically. Because like, I'm just not going to go out and discuss like, oh yeah, like Joseph de Maestro was right about like government accountability. Like, it's easier to hold a king accountable than it is a bureaucracy, because with a king, you really only have to execute one king, whereas like I'd have to execute 5,000 bureaucrats. It's like no one wants to talk about that because then it's like, obvious discomfort, and the party has been effectively ruined, right? The vibe is over.
Right.
But at the same time, sort of just to condense it all down, it's tragic that we're that way and that we've lost that sense of any sort of relationship. But I mean, America, at least as I've described it, and I'm sure maybe other countries might disagree, but like, America is the most psyoped place on earth. And it is like ground zero of all kinds of information and psychological warfare. And we're all kind of, put aside these presuppositions to where when I'm online, there are the group dynamics will become really quickly established. It's like, okay, is this guy a lurker? Is he a reply person? Is he trying to make it big? Is he a poster or a writer or a video essayist or whatever, right? And then from there, my friend calls this de-dimensionalization, wherein certain parts of your personality will be deliberately carved away from you, so you fit this perfect little archetype.
Oh yeah, big time.
And so that's kind of where we're at, which encourages political polarization, tribal allegiances to whatever group chat or guys that are bigger than you associate you with, and then just sort of like these kind of gang drive-by shootings of just saying things to troll the other guys and enjoy the clicks and the rage that follows. And I mean, that's a really watered down version of kind of just how it is online.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, I don't know like how much interaction you have with like foreign nationals or whatever, but you would not believe how the PSYOP exports from the United States. Like, this isn't just like a localization issue. When I'm in Greece, people there, because of the news, literally think that there are different ethnic groups in the United States literally just constantly hunting each other down with firearms. Like, every day, everywhere and every day. And I'm like, things are a little funky here in the state, but it's not that. It's not like a constant active war zone. But a lot of the opinion that that people outside the states have of this place is catered by traditional news media and how they've kind of structured things, because the big pop stories of police brutality, civil unrest, ethnic and social divide, these are the things that are capitalized on. And you go to other places in the world and they're like, Yeah, we don't got none of that here. It's like well, I mean, some places obviously do, but like a lot of the people that I've talked to where they're from, they're like, why would I ever want to move to America when this is the situation there? It's like, it's not really the situation. They're everywhere all the time. I mean, there are definitely problems here, but it's not like it's very skewed. It's very strange. And there's also something you said a little bit earlier that I found really interesting, that people people are kind of chiseled out and catered into these slots. I think this was a thing that was happening from the 80s, but we started to see the first fruits of that problem happen just about 20 years ago, when it was able to be exported onto people through the internet. And it's the most interesting thing that I don't have an answer to yet, because I'm in my 20s. Of course I have an answer to everything, or at least I think I do. The idea of the global brain drain, the idea of exporting our consciousness and our ability to think and to feel onto the machine. And more importantly than something doing things for us, what we've lost the ability to do. And I think kind of tying everything in that we've talked about already, the ability to have civil social conversation, the idea of having civil political conversation, is lost upon this idea that people have just gotten dumber in every single aspect. Creativity is down. Social cohesion is down. The family unit is down. Like just the fabric of how what a family is supposed to look like, how they operate. And I feel like one more death blow to it was the COVID event, and just kind of encapsulating all this. It's like it feels like everything stinks. Movies are awful. Music is now awful. Video games are now awful. Public events are, always layered now in some veneer of politic on one side or the other. And it's like, why is nothing fun anymore? Is it us on a personal level? Is it the thing itself? Like, I don't know. And why is nothing being done about it? Why can't anybody fix it? Does that all make sense? Because I have I don't have an answer to how this all got to here from 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
Well, I mean, whoever writes the definitive historical volume of how we got to here in 10 years will be the prize winner in my book. But I mean, there's so many. To condense it down, I guess maybe perhaps this is that in the United States around 10, 15 years ago, you come out of this era of new atheism, to where, of course, the Richard Dawkins types and the Christopher Hitchens are debating, like William Lane Craig and the rest of them. There's this really big kind of countercultural movement against the sort of mainstream Protestant Christianity that dominates the United States. And of course, it's in the backdrop of a conservative president. I say conservative lightly, George W. Bush being in office, right? And so, like, I turned 30 this year. I'm not that much older than you, but I mean, in terms of being on the internet and social media and everything like that, I mean, 5 years is basically a millennia, right? Just as 1,000 years is a watch in the night, right?
Yeah.
And so, essentially, what becomes from that moment is that the internet social media as we know it kind of becomes into fruition at the beginnings, at the sort of late stages of this sort of movement. And of course, there's debates between Christians and atheists over the existence of God. Did the resurrection really happen? I mean, you can go look this stuff up. I think that probably the best debate out of all of them was probably the William Lane Craig versus Chris Hitchens was probably the best one that kind of came out there, because it was one of the few times I've ever seen Hitchens stumped.
Sam Harris guy got popular too, huh?
That's also where Sam Harris comes from, is new atheism, and plenty of others that are still around today. But anyways, what we would kind of call wokeism, or just sort of modern progressivism, there's so many words that you can use to describe it, really emerges out of this era, because there's this realization that if religion isn't real, or if God isn't real, but these other things are true, whether it's scientific rationalism or evolution or human biodiversity, whatever, clearly that means that we have to do things to be furthermore to achieve social justice. There's a very correct observation that a lot of modern progressivism is this sort of chiliastic heresy of Christianity. We must immanentize the eschaton, we must bring the heaven on earth, and we will do it through our own progress. God is not required, right?
Yeah.
However, like these kind of attitudes and beliefs radicalize themselves to such a point that even things that progressives or, well-to-do liberals 10, 15 years ago began to feel really uncomfortable. Like, I mean, the transgender stuff is a very good example, even the expansion of just even gay marriage being this big issue, because of course, we're 10 years past Obergefell v. Hodges in America. And I pray that Greece does not experience the same thing that we do with the legalization of gay marriage. The slippery slope that every social conservative and their mother talked about all came true. We went from 10 years of, and I mean, even prior to that, there was so much media push to sort of have it legalized. You had Will and Grace on television, which tried to show individuals who, have homosexual proclivities to be like, oh, I'm normal, just like you, and skip over all the other dirty things that would get called hate facts today.
Yeah.
And of course, it's a push to normalize, which of course is, I know that he's not liked by everyone, but I do like what Mr. Illich writes in On Resistance to Evil by Force. That's the way they get you, is to turning off your disgust response. And that, I mean, they worked wonderfully, and it really did. And so progressivism sort of emerges and it radicalizes because younger generations have now been effectively taught by the radicals of previous generations, because like Bill Clinton pardoned Bill Ayers. You have people like what's her name, Angela Davis, who was associate of murder during a lot of the days of rage in the 1970s. She's now, she still gives talks to this day and trying to dismantle.
Does she? Really?
Yeah, she does. When I was in college 10 years ago, I saw her speak. It was like crazy to think about. Like, oh, this person helped kill people and is a radical communist who hates the existence of myself because I'm white. And here I am in a college campus listening to her speak. Like, it's absolutely insane.
Right.
However, like that politics also saw a response to that on the right. I mean, like you saw new atheists kind of also become like skeptics and then became classical liberals. And so like there's a Catholic YouTuber by the name of Settler's Lament has this great video asking, like, where did the skeptics go? These sort of like new atheist types. Like, well, I mean, the best example of that era would be like Carl Benjamin, Sargon of Akkad, who went from being this sort of like liberal, edgy new atheist kind of like, shit poster kind of guy to,
and then he started grifting conservatism. Yeah.
Well, sure. And then he I wouldn't call him a grifter, at least right now, but I mean, like the way that in which what he has turned into is night and day difference from what he was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's very strange for me because
maybe it's an unavoidable thing, right?
Well,
maybe
to some extent, because the other side of that coin is that you turn into someone like Vaush or the Amazing Atheist, right? Like the whole meme about like which way to go, like the little boy and the two castles to go to. Like you either, at this point, you guys either went like to the right or you went very far to the left. And there hasn't really been, I mean, there's room for middle ground because both sides have their spectrums. But on the left, at least, there are certain idols that you cannot desecrate, right? You can have different perspectives on a private solution to healthcare. You can have a position on foreign policy or what the Fed should do. But if you ever denigrate, like, just these racial egalitarianism or feminism or abortion or whatever, you're screwed, because the left has a pretty interesting political theology in the United States. I mean, intersectionality, which I don't think the right ever really came up with a good answer to. But it's like, it didn't. So for instance, if you were a single issue voter in, say, Denver, Colorado, and you cared about one thing and one thing only, which was about the ethical treatment of animals, and you wanted to stop things like mass industrial farming and slaughter, like you wanted some reform to that, which is well-intended, well-natured. But because you're now voting for the Democrat or you're voting on the left on that issue, you're now being brought on board into this broader coalition where everything is somehow interconnected, and you're now on a hierarchy of things that are more important. And so there is this sense of liberation theology that gets incorporated into that. Oh, and that's sort of how it is. And I mean, we all become radicalized in response to this, because even you'll see like American conservative pundits today kind of like clap like monkeys with the symbols when they see like Bill Maher, who's an arch progressive, talk about how far the left has gone on a certain issue. And it's like, see, doesn't this mean that we're winning? And it's like, no, it just means that the left has gone so far now that people consider this like social leftist and progressive Bill Maher to be like conservative or right wing, which is crazy to think about. And so we're now on a stake where you can consult the graphs if you want to, where it's like Gen Z women and men are so politically opposite of each other. Home ownership of people who are 30 years old and married with children is at an all-time low in America.
I just saw that one, yeah.
Yeah, Nathan Halberstadt's graph is just absolutely depressing. And so when you look at all these things at the end of the day, it's just like, okay, America functionally is tearing apart at the seams. There is no assimilation. There is no cultural cohesion because we're in an age of media consumption where everything is decentralized. There are fandoms and genres and communities of things that I have no idea about unless I turn on incognito mode on YouTube. And
everything has one now.
Yeah, everything has one. So there's nothing unified. Like the last big unifying media moment in America might have been the first 4 seasons of Game of Thrones. And even then, it really only mattered if you had HBO. And so nowadays, it's like, well, what constitutes culture? What constitutes anything? Well, at this point, it's what you make of it, because most people in the United States, whether they're immigrants or native born, have become more or less very effectively deracinated from their own homegrown traditions or maybe stuff from the home country, that like the internet just sort of becomes the way in which they do that. And then you throw COVID into the mix, at least with respects to orthodoxy. People are like, well, where do I go from here? And I mean, there's a great essay from Tara Isabella Burton, I think it was in 2021, called, Weird Christianity, that was in the New York Times. I think she's a fantastic writer. And I think that led to a lot of people returning to all forms of Christianity in the United States, Orthodoxy, Catholicism, and mainline Protestantism of all of its denominations, because America is a very death-avoidant country. I've been to several.
They don't know how to handle it. You're right.
I've been
saying this for years.
We really don't. And then, of course, COVID hits, and now you're banned from like even having a funeral that you would traditionally have for your grandparents or parents or whatever, and that radicalizes people. But I mean, we're a very death avoidant society. We don't talk about dying. We don't talk about death. We're very medicated. We're all sorts of things. And so, I mean, I've been to plenty of funerals that are not Orthodox, and I will say that I think, the Orthodox tradition has the correct, 100% correct way how to handle and treat and respect for the dead, better than I've seen anywhere else in the world. And I think that it's very tragic that we don't really expose ourselves to that. Like one of the first Orthodox funerals I had ever been to, and I would serve in it as a member of the choir. I mean, just to have the young kids also there and the body is there. I mean, there's a great reverence for it, and everyone kind of understands that like this is where we all go at the end of our lives. Whereas in a lot of places, it's not like that, whether it's the multi-million-dollar, mortician industry of making them look pretty or stuffed, or it's very strange. And because of that,
behind them or
right. And so at the end of the day, I think people kind of come to their senses and they're like, okay, well, death is real, so maybe I should get right with my creator. And I mean, for me, it was even worse, because at my time, due to a congenital birth defect that got corrected when I was like 6 years old, I had to deal with kidney failure and all this COVID stuff at the same time. And so it was just like, well, Lord have mercy on me. I should probably figure out how to get right with my God. Which led me going down all sorts of paths, like this guy on dialysis with a port, like going to the few churches that were still open in the area.
Yeah.
And I thank God every day for it, because one, it brought me back to my family in a way that I had not really had when I was in my early 20s. And then secondly, it brought me to Christ. And thank God for that at the end for all things. But I think that's where a lot of people are nowadays, is that, okay, things are getting progressively worse. I'm radicalized in some form or fashion, and I'm probably going to double down on my beliefs, and that's where we're at.